Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tech Sparks, the 11th edition. I hope your entrepreneurs are learning a lot there. You're networking well. But one thing that you entrepreneurs have to keep in mind is banking, right? It plays a major role in your payables, receivables, and today's banks are digital. If you look at digital banking, its market size in 2018 was only 6 billion, okay? And by 2025, it's expected to go to 16 billion. And I'm telling you, to talk about this, we have some wonderful panelists. Okay, our topic today is smarter business unlocks tomorrow with digital banking. Okay, let me introduce my panelists quickly, and then they'll give an introduction about themselves. I've got Siddharth Rungta, country head of global liquidity and cash management, HSBC India. I've got Nishat Goyal, chief operating officer of Rentokil initial Hygiene. I've got Omkar, co-founder of Karza Technologies. I've got Srinath Shankar, co-founder Pickyourtrail, and I've got Samarth Agrawal, founder MaxWholesale, and I'm your moderator Vishal Krishna, business editor of Your Story. And hi everybody. Samarth, I want to start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about MaxWholesale? A quick introduction.
So MaxWholesale is a B2B commerce company, and we enable Kirana stores to procure products for their stores. We give them a doorstep delivery at the store for thousands of products that they sell in the stores. We are currently live in New Delhi and Chandigarh. And the way it works is that we give them an application on which the Kirana stores can place they can discover products, they can discover prices, and they can place an order. And the order is then processed by our team in the closest warehouse, which is closest to the Kirana store, and we deliver the product to their store within 24 hours of order placement. So it cuts the need for capital requirement at the Kirana store level. It enables them to provide more products to their customers.
It's an omni-channel for the Kirana. That's fantastic, Samarth. That's fantastic. Srinath, why don't you tell us about Pickyourtrail? It's, I mean, a lot of people love Pickyourtrail for the curated travel that you did for them. Go on, Srinath.
So yeah, basically Pickyourtrail, we are in the leisure holiday space, and what we typically do is that we have an online platform and an app where you can come on the platform, customize your holidays and book them. And if you have any kind of issues, or if you want to, further customize it, we always have a set of holiday experts who are destination experts who can help you handhold on the platform and help you book wonderful holidays. So, pre-COVID, we were doing exclusively outbound only from India, and post-COVID, we had to innovate, and we started doing, concept staycations, luxury staycations within India for the audience, and we have launched a platform called as PYT Deals, where you can find some fabulous staycations at fabulous rates. So that's what we do.
You want to repeat that? It's called TYT Deals, right? So that just
TYT
so that
Deals.
So that people go order on your platform. TYT Deals. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Omkar, Karza is the middle of everything India and banking, eKYC, very important. Tell us about yourself quickly.
So what we're trying to build at Karza essentially is one of the most comprehensive digital due diligence platforms, right? It's not just restricted to your initial KYC, but how do you follow through with risk assessments, fraud checks, underwriting, and even assisting in monitoring and then collections, right? So how do you essentially revamp the entire supply side of banking? Whereas a lot of work was done in terms of the demand side, where you're digitizing, you're creating websites, online platforms to apply. Applications were easy, right? But in the end, all of them used to have a message. Once you submit an application, you get a message. One of our representatives will get back to you, right? So that's where the entire manual arm should start in terms of the supply side of work. So the aim was
it's completely automated, of course.
Right. So how do you basically digitize the entire supply side as well, so that the application is processed through and through? Completely digitally, while managing risk, compliance, policy, frauds, etc. And not only just managing what they're doing, but elevating it to the next level, right? So how do you, that's where we leverage on big data, basically looking at AI and ML algorithms in order to enhance or help banks gather much higher degree of intelligence around these borrowers. At the same time, ensure that, so basically it is about providing them with 20x intelligence in less than 10% of the time that they used to take in for a traditional diligence. So we are not compromising on any element, but at the same time, elevating the overall organization to the next level and ensuring through and through digital experience, so that tomorrow, once you submit your form, you have an offer in front of you and not that a representative will call you.
So a traditional would take weeks, whereas this takes days, right?
Right. So that's where basically we're now enhancing, you'll see products in the market where you have instant loan in 5 minutes straight into your accounts. You have SME loans in less than half an hour max, sort of hitting your account, and not just basically an offer or a decision, it's money in your bank. That's the kind of straight-through processing we are looking towards.
Okay. Nishat, I hear your company is one of the fastest growing companies today. And HSBC tells me that you might have heard of a lot of startups, but not Rentokil. And I conceded, yes, I have to spend more time on Rentokil after this conversation. Tell us about Rentokil, why it's a fast growing company, please.
Okay, so Rentokil is actually not a startup. We are more than 100-year-old company now.
Wow.
Okay. So we are primarily a British company, and we started in early 1900s, and we currently operate in almost more than 90 countries globally, covering almost 91% of the global GDP across North America, Europe, UK, and rest of the world. Of course, Asia Pacific. We are also primarily into commercial pest control and washroom hygiene services.
Okay.
It's completely a different ballgame. Of course, as far as hygiene business is concerned, which I represent, we operate in almost about 46 countries across the globe, and we are number one in 22 out of those markets. So anything and everything which is related to pest control and washroom hygiene. So as soon as you enter a washroom, you see multiple things which are there, which is related to hygiene. Rentokil provides them globally. We are also last year were awarded as the best employer in UK coming across multiple other companies. So as the best employers also. So as far as India is concerned, we are there for almost close to 15 years now. As far as pest control is concerned, in year 2017, we formed this joint venture with Pest Control of India.
Yeah, that's the old listed entity.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's almost 50 years old company in India.
Yes.
So that's the JV, which is called as Rentokil PCI. Yeah. Thank you.
That's amazing. Nishat, a really 100-year-old company. I mean, there's a lot of learning from you guys. We'll share it with our audience. That's amazing. Siddharth, where do you find such companies as country head of global liquidity and cash management? It's a very technical term for our audience, startups watching this. You have to tell us what your role is about. Go on.
So I think very simply put, Vishal, while Srinath, Omkar, Samarth, and Nishat, while they focus on their core business and their brilliant ideas, which they are executing really well, I think HSBC and global liquidity and payments and cash management, we take care of everything else.
Yes.
In terms of the day-to-day banking in the most efficient manner possible, but not just the day-to-day banking. But as we go through this session and the esteemed panelists will share, how they have leveraged technology, what you will see is that there are a lot of solutions, which have been provided, which actually add to the competitive advantage, while executing those ideas. Because, to pick what Omkar said, in terms of a loan in 30 minutes. Now how is that happening? It's happening because probably somewhere beneath that, there are APIs working to make sure that there is a real-time information exchange happening between all the parties involved. So to answer your question, we take care of everything else while our clients focus on executing their core idea and their core business.
That's fantastic. Siddharth, I'm in love with you because you said API-driven world. I think that's the future, and that's where I want to move on to Omkar, right? Omkar, talking about APIs, talking about leveraging banking technology to provide solutions for BFSI. That must be a phenomenal journey for you. How do you work with this ecosystem? Tell us what you do for banks using tech.
Sure. So essentially, it's more and more moving towards a microservices environment altogether, right? So it's not just about private banking, but also the great part now is basically the government is improving on that front. Started off with the entire Aadhaar revolution, coming now to the GST and APIs. You have regulators taking interest in API sandboxes, opening up their intelligence to various organizations. Still, there is a long way to go, but it is progressing towards a better environment now with the account aggregator, with the LSP and the Ocean ecosystem coming in. It is
you want to quickly tell us about these three things that you mentioned: account aggregator, LSP, and all that. Go on.
Sure. So essentially, it is where it's moving towards is also the way it's similar, built in on top of UPI framework sort of. So now today, when you're exchanging money via UPI, I can send in just basis of contact number. I can send money to anyone from any account to any account. A similar manner, exchange of data is being eased out. So tomorrow I should be able to send my profile, my bank statements, my account details, etc., seamlessly to any organization within a matter of few seconds, right? So it's an integration of all various financial institutions and bankers. At the same time, you also have onboarding platforms coming on top of that, right? You would be so it is about giving ease or convenience to a consumer to apply for credit or any banking facility from whichever platform they are on, right? So tomorrow, Zomato Valet, he would be using Zomato app day in, day out. Now, if he wants a quick, basically help in terms of monetary benefits, he wants a loan of $1,000-$2,000 for an immediate need. Maybe an Uber driver is on the Uber app on a daily basis, right? He had a car crash or whatever. He needs $1,000 for maintenance. He doesn't have
insurance, right? Some kind of
or whatever insurance as well. So they can instantaneously apply from any of these platforms. You don't have to come to a bank bazaar or a police bazaar or any other app. You can just be on the same app that you use day in, day out, apply from there, pass on your information to the banker at the back through these platforms. So the Ubers of Zomato, Swiggies of the world would become the LSPs. The exchange would be data exchange would be managed by the account aggregators, and Ocean would be the open credit repository sort of. So that will be coming in. So all of this exchange sort of happens in a completely seamless manner, right? And traditionally, if you look at it, a lot of manual effort was wasted in terms of doing all of these aspects.
Added to the cost also.
Right.
Added to the cost.
Even if, say, for example, I remember when we started off, you get a PAN card for every application, right? So you have a verification of PAN card done. You upload a batch file to, say, income tax and STL, get the list of names as per PAN. I met a guy whose day job essentially was just to look up the name as per application and name as per PAN, and thousands of rows just going match, no match, right? So it is essentially, you can definitely use these resources for much better purpose, right? So you can use them for better decisioning, better underwriting, and building those models rather than doing these kind of efforts on a manual basis. At the same time, another issue that we noted where basically HSBC sort of came to our rescue as well was the entire process of doing KYC, fraud checks. You have risk assessments, multiple policies are set in, manual physical verification, etc. is all because you want to ensure that you're giving the money to the right person, right? Okay. Be it in a banking side, that's the front. But on the other side, when you're looking at SEBI, when you're taking a mutual fund, you're disbursing credit. So there's a KYC that you're taking the money and giving it to the right person who has invested it. Insurance also similarly, claim money has to be sent to the right person, right? But the biggest flaw that we saw that at the end, when the money was being disbursed to the people, the bank account details itself were never verified. Yeah. So although you're verifying the entire identity and profile of the person, when the actual money is being remitted, you don't know whether you're remitting it to the right person or not, right? That's where even as basically a service to have a quick verification of the bank account through a penny drop or through utilizing the IMPS gateways and so on and so forth, to have an instant validation of the names, confirm that, hey, you're transferring the money to actually to the same person who was the applicant and not some random person, right? So that's where basically you had multiple frauds also happening earlier in terms of money being transferred to some random person essentially, and then you're trying to recover that money from them. And it's a long process, right? So might as well save yourself before you do that. So that the entire process of weeks together or months altogether at times was undertaken for this one activity. Yes. And that activity itself was never verified. So that's where basically we're thinking in terms of we have to sort of have a microscopic vision, right? Looking at each and every step, each and every process that the bank undertakes at their back end, and understand how we can first digitize those. Yeah. Second is enhance that entire process with added intelligence. And third, essentially, is help them take a decision as well. So when we're taking in a KYC, the right first step is digitization could be right from OCRs to text recognition to face matching, face liveness, etc. to the second layer of enhancement, right? So it's not just I'm taking a PAN and validating that. We enhance that with additional information in terms of, hey, whether this person was blacklisted anywhere, was it debarred by SEBI, or and so on and so forth. Are there any sort of red flags around that person or individual basis the kind of information that's provided in the application? And whether that not only is valid from that given document, but at least reconfirm from 3-4 other sources. Hey, the person's identity, contactability, employment is consistent across sources, whatever he has disclosed. And lastly is with the decisioning framework, it comes in as the risk scores, right? So at an overall application risk score, identity, contactability, and employment scores, on top of which the bank or financial institution can build a straight-through process. So these are the 3 stages in terms of how we look at digitizing. And finally, essentially, when you're disbursing the money, not to forget in terms of you're passing or basically remitting the money to the right person, right? So that's the overall journey, and we cover the entire gamut of services or products, right from personal loans, credit cards, unsecured PL to SME, mid-corporate, large corporate, etc., where we have built-in intelligence about close to 22 million businesses across the country today. So within less than 100 milliseconds, we help banks with the thorough diligence, investigative grade diligence about any business across the country for instant qualification and lending decisions, even from an SME framework perspective. So it's not just digitizing one specific product, retail side or wholesale side, it's across the spectrum. That's where
and you would appreciate that it's because banks like HSBC are providing APIs today, and that's what makes it easier, right?
Absolutely.
And so tomorrow it's an era of a super app. I can be your story app can be a super app. It can do everything. Everything is done in one app, kind of thing, right? And where Karza then sits in the background and does the KYC for everybody, right? Is it going to happen? Do you see that happening?
Absolutely, definitely, it will happen, right? And that's why, from a overall perspective, we are sitting on the supply side, right? Irrespective of the acquisition channel, it is the bank that is going to deliver the money.
Correct.
Right? In the end, it has to hit a bank or an NBFC at the back end.
Absolutely.
Although multiple platforms might come in. So you'll have a mechanism basically where it will be a shared environment altogether. But it will also, on the other side, enable perfect competition to some extent.
And you would call yourself an enterprise SaaS company, right?
Right.
Fantastic. Moving on to Srinath. Srinath, I love Pickyourtrail. Obviously, I'd come to Chennai, met you guys. We did a video there with you. And I love the travel itinerary that you provide to families that were, on your packages, right? That was amazing. So, what's happened, during COVID for you? You mentioned that briefly. And how have you embraced technology, to help stakeholders at this point of time? How are you managing the payables? What are the benefits you're seeing with it too? And to Omkar's point on open APIs and changing way of transacting with different people, different management structures, different stakeholders, employees, vendors. You want to talk about that a bit, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So sometime back in late 2018 and early 2019, our growth was kind of exploding, and we were operating India outbound. We were operating Europe, Singapore, Southeast Asia, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, US, and Africa. So that essentially meant that we were doing itineraries in different currencies. Number one. Number two is that for a typical itinerary that in any vacation that is being booked on our platform, there are roughly about 23 to 24 line items. That means that there are at least about 15 to 20 vendors, and each one of them possibly be looking at different currencies of settlements, different modes of settlement. Somebody would be taking only credit cards. Somebody would be looking for bank remittances. Somebody would be like giving us credit and saying that settle against this credit, against bank guarantee, all of that. So the supply side was very, in the payment settlements, especially different currencies, different geographies, different modes of payments, was a very complicated problem. Similarly, on the receivable side from the customers, as we started scaling, our average ticket size was roughly about $3,000 to $4,000, or about 3 lakhs, if I have to put it that way. Predominantly, back in 2018 and 19, single swipe of a credit card for 3-4 lakhs, more often than not, the failure rates were very high because of the compliance and risk assessment. And that's one thing. And second thing is a lot of people were actually saving for these vacations. So a lot of transactions used to happen through banks for us. And credit card would be about 40-50%, and 40-50% would be bank transactions. So from customer side, that used to be one of the things. But on our product, we always believed technology first, and we believed API is the future of the world. So our product was very well, right from supply. Each of the suppliers were integrated through APIs with us, and we were distributing APIs not just on our platform, but also to other travel agents. We were always strong believers of API. But when it came to money matters, a large part of it was very manual. You wouldn't believe that at that point of time, it was a nightmare for my finance team to, reconcile monthly credit card statements, monthly remittance statements, match against which vendor it has gone, have it done correct payments, and fraud used to be a huge challenge because I would give credit card details to one of my suppliers and I don't have a way of figuring out if there's a fraudulent transaction that has happened, where it has happened and how it has happened. It was a nightmare, to be very honest. And along with that, 2019, we were scaling tremendously as well. So that kind of made us look back saying that, hey, on the product side, we are scaling. Technology is something that we're adopting, but our finance side seems to be very rudimentary as to speak. And it basically, if we don't solve for it today, I will be having an army of collections people. I will have an army of due diligence people, which is not something that we generally believed in. And that's when we started looking out for solutions, to be very honest, both on the receivable side and on the payable side.
You're very candid when you said that a lot of the startups forget, the finance side of it. They don't set processes there. And I think for your rapid growth, you had to work with HSBC to manage these things. And how did you set it up? If you can tell us, how did you manage payments?
Absolutely. To be very honest, at that point of time, we were looking for solution and we wanted to go deep, because if I invest in technology, that means that I am taking resources from building my core product. I'm taking that resource out there and building a finance-led technology, which is not necessarily my core competency. But we were very, very sure that if we don't build this as we scale, because travel is a low margin business, 2 or 3% error here and there could potentially mean that my top line, my contribution margins, everything take a hit and my unit economics become weak. So we were very particular about it. We wanted to look at all the options, and thankfully, after a long deliberation and a lot of back and forth, we chose to partner with HSBC, and it was a very interesting conversation. So the mandate we gave them is that, I want to solve my receivable side and also the payable side. And you will have to help us build these solutions. So some parts of it, we were probably the pioneers. That's what HSBC continues to tell us, that, because you wanted this, we were building these solutions. And we said that if you're building these solutions, we're more than happy to be the lab rat to test on, because we are definitely the very complicated payable side for us, and we need to solve for this. So probably I'll take step by step and talk about how the new age digital banking is actually helping startup like us to solve problems and make things really, really simple. So let's say, for example, on the receivable side, on the customer side, if I have to get payments, as I mentioned earlier, them sending bank transfer was one of the aspects, and more often than not, given that we were getting a lot of transactions, reconciling that was a great problem for us. So one of the things that we looked at is virtual accounts, obviously, as a solution, wherein for each customer, a dedicated account number is given to them. And once they transfer that, all I have to do is, at the end of the day, when I do reconciliation, because this is API driven for me, I can give him a custom account number, and when I take back my bank statements and do a single click reconciliation, that account number is that customer's money into the system. So my receivables were very cleanly ordered. Earlier, it used to be I had to check who has sent that money and manually go and track at the end of the day. But now with this virtual accounts, we were able to streamline that. It was just a 5-minute job at the end of the day to reconcile all receivables from a customer side, number one. Number two also was that, on the receivable side, we could also give them, we could do that API into our CRM so that account generation, number one, to our customers is instant, and it can be shown on the product when quotes are sent out to them or the itinerary PDFs are sent out to them. A custom account number is set out to them. So integration into CRM was also seamless for us. So that was on the receivable side. Similarly, for the customers, on the payable side, refunds in the post-COVID, that was the biggest news out there. So, at the peak of just before the shutdown was announced sometime in March, we roughly had about 4,000 passengers who had booked out their holidays till July. And this had roughly about 10,000 to 20,000 odd, flights, hotels, a lot of bookings out there. So we had to manage the entire cancellation part of it, and then doing refunds every week. Refunds batches used to be sent out to the customer, and that again from our CRM, refunds was calculated and files were generated, and we could do instant disbursement of funds to our customers. All thanks to this virtual account and disbursement integration that we had done with HSBC. It was very, very useful, and definitely, unless we had not invested in this, I think I would have had to have a 4-member finance team to just do that.
I can speak for this because during the COVID, you put out a lot of, your customers loved you for actually settling a lot of things fast. And it speaks volumes about the work that you've done with technology. Yeah, I think that goes a long way in your attitude towards customers and helping them. That's brilliant. And now moving on to my favorite subject of kiranas, and that's something that never goes out of fashion in our country. And it seems like, when I was writing about kiranas 20 years ago, people said, they'll never adopt technology. Suddenly with Reliance and Jio, everybody wants to look at, kiranas, so it's interesting to now bring in, my friend Samarth here, whose company, MaxWholesale, handles kiranas and how they use technology to help these small stores. You want to take it over, Samarth? Do you want to tell us how kiranas are also transforming with the MaxWholesale?
Thanks, Vishal. So absolutely, all of us have been to the kirana stores. We do that very casually. We walk over to a store nearby and we ask for whatever comes to our mind, expecting that the guy will just go inside and just pick up the product and give it to us for our use. But we seldom wonder, how do these kirana stores actually get all those products in their store? How do they actually make sure that they are able to predict what the people are living in their area would be asking for, what kind of products? And they always have at least 1 or 2 pieces of that. So kirana stores actually play a very vital role of making sure that this huge variety of products that we love to use on a daily basis are available to us within a few 100 meters of our residence. And actually, because of that, our country has evolved. We have evolved as people who buy groceries in a non-planned manner. We buy them when we are out of something. So we don't have to really wait for the end of the month to buy in bulk. We just walk down. So kirana stores provide this kind of an essential service to us, but the problem is of fragmentation. Our country has more than about 5,000 manufacturers of grocery items. We have about 13 million kirana stores supporting around 275 million families, which is about 1.4 billion people, 1.3 to 1.4 billion people. So kirana stores are actually providing this huge service of supply chain to the people of the country. And in order to be able to do that, what they're doing is managing, it's absolutely mind-boggling. They're managing thousands of products in their store on a daily basis, right? And these products are procured from at least a few hundred brands on a weekly basis. So what that boils down to is that every brand has very small business to do in each store. So if you talk about the largest of brands in India, that's making its product reach to about 2 million kirana stores. You still have about 11 million kirana stores, or 9 to 11 million kirana stores left, where the biggest of brands in India is not able to reach out to. The unit economics don't make sense. A typical order from a store would be 1,000 rupees a week or 2,000 rupees a week. And the cost of delivery would itself be like about 50 to 100 rupees, depending on the size. So the cost of servicing a store ranges from 5 to 10% of the entire supply chain. And every brand trying to do that on its own is a very expensive and inefficient proposition. Every brand trying to make a pipeline to each and every store of the country is a huge task. It's an uphill battle for any brand. And the brand's real focus should be building a good product that people want to use and doing its marketing, making people aware about the qualities of its products. And that's where we come in. We ensure that a brand is able to position its product in every shelf where it's required. Use your resources optimally using data science, using mobile technology, using, we are all talking about APIs. How do we build APIs for supply chain? How do we build an operating system for supply chain? So for that, what MaxWholesale did was we built an app where we can onboard Kirana stores. So that's the first step. You provide them a front end so that they can now interact on demand instead of waiting for the brand to come to them. So you provide them with some sort of a front end technology. And now for that technology to work, we support that with our warehousing and logistics. So all the orders that the Kirana stores are placing, they need to be fulfilled somehow, right? So the most optimal way is to build your own warehouse and your own logistics so that in one go, in less than 24 hours, we are able to take all possible brands in one box to the retailer, right? So that's the most efficient way of doing supply chain. Right?
I agree. And after this conversation, I'm sure Karza and you should get on a call and you can do eKYC for all your Kiranas and provide loans to HSBC too. It's a possibility.
Absolutely, absolutely. See, working capital is a very important aspect of this business because it's about every Kirana store is strapped in terms of the amount of money they have put in their business. They need to increase the variety. They have capital resource constraints. We need to provide them with more capital, but we also need to understand the data on which we can provide that capital to them because not all the banking data is available very transparently as just yet. We are on that trajectory where it's getting more and more transparent. So one of the key aspects of providing them with supply is also providing them with the working capital through which they can enhance the efficiency of their operations in the stores. They can do more with the amount of space they have, with the amount of money they have. So that's where modern day banking also absolutely comes in, where we are able to provide with the Kirana stores with ability to pay us when they need to. They can switch on their payment mechanisms. There is eNash available these days. There is UPI, and we have other mechanisms through which the banks, the retailers can pay us, and also pay us later after the delivery has happened. So we can give them 7-day credit, 14-day credit based on their working capital cycles.
Samarth, I'm keen to know, when will you scale across the country using digital banking? Today, you can go from being a Delhi and Chandigarh-based company to a national company overnight because of all the current technologies available with you from a bank.
Absolutely. So the plan is absolutely to be national. There is not a single city in India which doesn't have not just a few Kirana stores, but a density of Kirana stores, which is absolutely essential. 97% of our country's food and grocery is being supplied through Kirana stores today. This is a $600 billion market, of which 97% is cornered or done justice to by Kirana stores. Now, out of this 97% Kirana store business, it's moving very rapidly online. If you look at countries like China or countries like Malaysia, where, for example, in China, about 35% of supply chain has already moved to digital mechanisms. And obviously, we all know what happened to the mobile payments technologies in China. So that is also happening in India. And going national is the natural next step. There's a lot of small stores not just in tier 3 or tier 2 cities of India. In fact, more than 60% of stores in even tier 1 cities are what we call class C or class D stores. Stores which are doing less than 15,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees of business per day, who are not viable to be reached with offline mechanisms. So online is the way to go. There is no alternative. That is the future. And we are building the operating system for that. So we have started with supplies, and obviously the natural next step is to provide digital banking, to provide digital financial mechanisms to the Kirana stores to help them do more with the resources that they have.
I'm glad you said you're an operating system and not a retailer. That era of physical retailing is over. You're an operating system. You have to provide various services for your customer, and that's happening. Wonderfully said. I'll move on to Nishat. Nishat, thank you for correcting me earlier, because being a 100-year-old company and being a leader in 22 of those 46 markets is a phenomenal task by itself. And I hope some of our businesses last 100 years. That speaks volumes about your company. And being a 100-year-old company, you're also using UPI, right? And how does that work? I mean, do you use UPI only for customers, or also for the people who go deliver the service at the doorstep of a corporate or a house? How does that work for RenttoKill? How do you use UPI as a service?
Okay. So Vishal, again, a little bit of information about the services what we are providing.
Yes,
so as far as Rentokil Initial Hygiene, so we are primarily into a B2B washroom services. So you enter any office, any commercial complex, anything which you find inside the washrooms probably would have been provided by Rentokil Initial. In fact, one of our key services that we provide is around feminine hygiene. So our company has been into forefront of providing feminine hygiene services, which includes one services what we call as the feminine hygiene bins. So that is for the females to dispose of the sanitary napkins. And another service what we provide is called as the sanitary napkin vending machine. It's just like any other vending machine where you put in a coin and that machine dispenses of a sanitary napkin. So that is one product which is, we have a few thousands of machines installed across all large corporates inside the female washrooms in these offices. Now, typically these kind of machines, what you have to do, you have to use either a 5 rupee coin or a 10 rupee coin. So you just put in that coin and that dispenses of a sanitary napkin. So that is one place where we actually kind of introduce UPI. So how it was happening, earlier it was lots of challenges for us because we are doing servicing of these machines. It means the replenishment of the napkins is part of our contract. So my team will go to each and every customer. We will replenish the stock. We will also collect the coins, So just imagine the kind of coins which we have to collect, and then we have to take it to the respective bank and then go out to deposit these coins. And of course, in the current scenario where people are not even ready to touch money, so we are all trying to be going away from money and trying to be digital. So this was the time almost more than a year back when we thought about why not go into digital space as far as the vending machines of ours is concerned. So HSBC being global bankers for us, we took this concept to HSBC that we want to have UPI enabled vending machines. The product was ready with us in terms of technology is concerned. So our suppliers were ready with the products. Only thing, the backend integration in terms of banking things is required. So we set up these project teams within Rentokil as well as HSBC, and then we implemented. So this project is already implemented, and now we are installing UPI enabled machines. So it is as simple as that, rather than putting up a coin. So a lady is absolutely, the lady is just going, she's just scanning, and the napkin gets dispensed. So it is really helped not only the consumer, it is only for us also. It has become much easier, because the ease of doing the coin collection, then going to the bank and trying to deposit the money. So these things have really helped us out, and we now plan to replace as many as machines that we have into the digital era. So since everything is going now digital, there's no doubt. So this is one of the projects which we initiated currently in the UPI space and going ahead with digital banking for now.
How do you do that integration, sir? I mean, for a traditional company like yours, you have a scanner code embedded in these systems, and that is provided by HSBC. Obviously, links to HSBC's backend technology and goes back to your app, of course. And I settle the payment with UPI.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did that integration on the machines take you?
Oh, it has taken less than a month. It has taken less than a month's time. So,
okay.
Because we have to.
How many have you rolled out?
Oh, currently we rolled out about 200 machines, but due to the pandemic coming in, things have a bit slowed down. But in fact, it is much better right now because the awareness suddenly has grown multifold as far as hygiene is concerned in our country. So as
Absolutely.
soon as unlock is affected across and the offices are back to normalcy with full attendance, we plan to keep
next year onwards.
Absolutely.
And I would recommend you to talk to your story because we are 80% women employees, and so it would be amazing to have your product.
We'll be glad to.
And I'm glad, and I'm sure Siddharth will let us talk to you. And Siddharth, moving on to you now, right? I want to talk about, you have such wonderful companies in your portfolio at this point of time doing cutting edge tech and banking services, right? I mean, it's a great blend. What do you think is the future with these guys? What's happening with banking? How are you going to help other clients stay ahead of the race? Is that something that you're going to take care of in such a way that neo-banking is here to stay? It's a hybrid kind of a model. We have to help these companies go win.
For sure, Vishal, but before I get into answering your question,
yeah, please.
I think a couple of comments, but I've been really hearing Nishat, Srinath, Omkar, Samarth really talking about their business and their solution.
Yes.
And it has been fascinating because I'm aware of all these solutions, which we have kind of put in at different stages. But it's fascinating to hear in their own words, okay, in terms of how really this solution has helped them solve business problems, okay, and has really contributed to what their core business is and what they really wanted to deliver to the end consumer in terms of either a product or a service or just the experience, okay, which is very, very important in today's world. And I hope this probably, I couldn't have explained better or answered better your initial question when you asked me, what do HSBC Global Liquidity and Cash Management does?
Yes.
I think it can't be a better explanation of what do we really do as a business, okay, in terms of solutions to clients. Coming to your question in terms of the future, I think the future is already here, okay, and
yes.
I think when you hear some of these solutions and how they're kind of solving for real life business problems, it's very much here. And the way I see it, Vishal, is that it's a when we talk about digital banking, it's a toolkit, okay.
Right.
You've got a toolkit with different components, sitting in that toolkit, and really what we do and what we kind of ask our customers to do is to really look at what is sitting in that toolkit, okay, and what is the problem statement we are trying to solve for, okay, and then pick the right components from that toolkit to then weave a solution which really solves that problem statement, okay, in a manner which is really efficient, scalable, and delivers the best possible client experience, okay. And you heard a lot of such examples, and probably I would like to add a couple, okay, which will just round it off and add a additional perspective to all our viewers in terms of how digital banking can help the startups and the businesses to really deliver what they're looking for. I think I think Samarth spoke about UPI, okay, and Nishat also spoke about UPI, okay. So UPI is just like a component. Okay, I'll share another example which we have delivered. Again, leveraging on a recent development which happened in UPI, because even these platforms are evolving and kind of developing. So there was this market enhancement in terms of UPI Autopay, okay, which is enabling recurring payments on UPI. So what solution which we have delivered is really in terms of an e-commerce company. When you're doing a checkout, okay, while you have so many options today available in terms of digital payments to make, to settle the transaction, but a UPI Autopay, if you sign up for UPI Autopay, you can actually get into recurring payments, you can get into EMIs, and you don't have to get into checks or even eNACH. Okay, you can have every month a UPI collect request coming in, okay, which a customer can just authorize the payment, and you can collect it over a period of time, which is significant application for microfinance startups or even SaaS business model based companies. Okay, the other thing which I want to talk about because I think Srinath spoke about receivables, okay, in terms of collecting money, okay, and collecting money not just, let's say, from a customer in India, okay, but even international, customers. So, we rolled out a proposition called OmniCollect, okay. Now, what OmniCollect does is that it enables clients to collect digital payments, from all their customers. And in today's COVID environment, we are seeing more and more customers really moving towards making payments digitally, rather than physical payments. So what OmniCollect enables our clients is they can collect payments online across different channels, be it cards, bank transfers, e-wallets, and not just the online payment gateway, but even offline. So if you've got a brick and mortar setup, in terms of offline card acquiring, but it's a single window, a single connectivity solution, which enables you to collect digitally and also get all the information and visibility across multiple channels in one space. And on top of it, we've used artificial intelligence to build a reconciliation solution, an ARR solution, because Srinath spoke about reconciliation also being a challenge. So while we use virtual accounts to solve in case of Pickyourtrail, but we've used an artificial intelligence-based ARR solution to solve for reconciliation challenges in some of the consumer goods industry clients of ours. And this solution is really doing well in edutech sector, your e-commerce marketplaces, travel, and even consumer goods segment. So that's just a couple of additional examples of how this components of the digital toolkit, okay, is helping us solve for specific problem statements. Okay, and I think again I'm going back to Srinath. He spoke about a problem statement being there, and then we really even building something, or investing into really customizing what we have to solve for what the problem statement was. And I think that's a very important approach to take, and which is why I never talk about products, and I think or what is really there on the shelf. It's really toolkits and components which you use to create something to solve a problem statement. One other area which probably worth talking about, because we, I think we spoke a lot about APIs. Okay, and I think again talking about future, which is already here today, API is all pervasive. Okay, and there are infinite possibilities. When we talk about APIs in terms of where it can be applied and the kind of problem statements it can solve for. Okay, and while we heard a few, okay, but one of the other which I wanted to share was again refunds. So when you have a marketplace, okay, and I'm sure all of us have got onto the marketplaces and bought something, okay, and then when you and let's say if you want to return it, okay, what we saw in the past was that this whole refund process was a fairly cumbersome process. But using APIs and the real-time payments infrastructure 24/7 in the country, what has been delivered as a client experience is that the moment you give that product you want to return into the hands of the agent who has come to collect it, using APIs, the system triggers a refund payment. Okay. Yeah. And using the 24/7 real-time infrastructure, the refund amount is in the bank account. And this can happen in a matter of minutes or even a couple of hours, okay, which really gives a enhanced client experience. And I was talking about in the beginning that it's important that technology is leveraged to enhance client experience. In a lot of cases, what we are seeing is that it's acting as a source of competitive advantage.
Correct.
Which is very, very important.
Correct.
And talking about APIs, now it's also very important how one connects with the bank, because it's really more in terms of how the connectivity is happening with the banks, and which is where and I'm going back to Srinath's point in terms of the whole investment in setting up the finance processes, and the fact that there's always a choice to be made. That do you focus on your core your core idea execution, which is obviously a lot technology.
Which is what the entrepreneur should do. Focus on the core of the business,
Exactly.
whereas everything else partner. And that's where the banking partner comes.
Exactly. And which is where, what we have worked on and we continue to work on is to kind of deliver sort of a banking in the box by, working and integrating with accounting softwares. We have in fact gone ahead, and what we have done is that we have actually created a differential electronic banking platform just for our business banking startup clients, okay, which is far more simpler than an electronic banking platform which our large corporates use. Because what we realize is that the startups really need something which is very, very simple, intuitive when it comes to navigating it or even the payment journey, and a lot of self-service tools, because they don't have time to really call up the bank and interact with the bank to get things set up, get things changed. So it's all self-service functionalities available on that differentiated electronic banking platform, which we call BBX, okay? So that they really can focus on their core business, okay? While the rest of the banking is very simple and, and can be set up and operated in a very intuitive and convenient manner.
That's fantastic. I mean, no other person could have said it better. It's banking in a box that HSBC offers for startups. And I'm sure all these can form a stack. Travel and hygiene go hand in hand, and travel and hygiene, then later retail goes hand in hand. And when it brings retail, you have Karza, Omkar's company coming in for the eKYC loans and everything else, right? I want 30-second answers for all of you because of the interest of time. I'm going to start with Samarth, only 30-second answers because we're running out of time and my team's asking me to close this quickly. Samarth, quickly, what do you look for in a banking partner? What are the basic banking requirements, and who's the best banking partner in that case? Is it technology or something else? Quickly, 30-second answer.
Yeah, so we look for sustainability. We look for a bank which is future-proof, which has a good technology stack. We look for somebody who understands our business and the needs of our customers and us as a customer. We look for a bank which doesn't nickel and dime us. And we look for a bank which has great customer service. And in HSBC, actually, we have found all of these things.
Okay, Nishat, you had to embrace digital transformation with a bank. There is no one-size-fits formula, right, for digital change. What do you think is digital transformation for you, and how do you embrace it?
Okay, so you just mentioned Rentokil being a traditional company. Yes, it's a 100-year-old company, but Rentokil globally was the first company to go in for the commercial G Suite application that we started. So that way, so I think digital adaptation transformation is all about don't do anything differently, but just kind of adapt to what's going on. If there was no digital explosion within our own country, we wouldn't have survived the lockdown, something like that. I myself been part of the telecommunication industry for a very, very long time before I came out here. So I've seen, how the things is happening in digital part in India, and a lot of awareness which is just getting created about digital platform. I'll just try to kind of link it with the awareness around hygiene. Till 8 months back, people were not using too much of sanitizers or masks. The same thing was there about digital. Now we are just all of us sitting there and doing this panel discussion. 8 months back, we would have been sitting face to front and face to face and all. So things are changing. And as I said, we have to only keep looking at how to adapt to things and let us not be too much rigid, because this is the future. This is the future, and we cannot stop it, and we have to keep changing ourselves along with that.
And perhaps to your point, next time we meet, we'll have hand sanitizers with us. Also, that's a habit-changing formation that's going to happen forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
So
absolutely.
that's great. And Srinath, using cards to make your payables efficient, right? How do you measure success of such a solution when you adopt such a solution in your company quickly?
Yeah, this was a no-brainer for us. One, this virtual cards that we're using, the previous issue for us was fraud transactions. And with virtual card, I can assign a prefixed amount to a particular merchant, which that card will expire after that transaction. So all of a sudden, my risk with respect to fraud transactions came down to zero. So that's a no-brainer for me in terms of ROI. Because as we scale, that's one problem that's instantly killed, number one. Number two is that, credit cards, corporate credit cards, it's part and parcel of doing business. One, it gives you great working capital for 30, 45 days, number one. And number two, it also gives you great negotiation power because we as travel, low margin business, we squeeze banks as much as possible. So credit cards, one, working capital, and second, they give us credit card cashbacks. We can operate with respect to that, and also negotiate on our currency rates that we can, negotiate on. So all of this put together was a complete package. So at the cost of, it was a 1 month integration for us. At the cost of my core product development, I think that it has very long-term ROI for us. So it was a no-brainer, to put it very simply.
Fantastic. Omkar, you're on the front and center of how banking is changing in this country, perhaps even globally. What important factors should you consider or would you recommend to consider before an execution of a digital banking solution for all the startups out there?
So from my side, essentially the way I look at it, some of the most critical factors, I would say 3 or 4. First and foremost has to be scale. So the solutions, whatever coming in, have to be scalable. If you're moving in, be it geographically, the number of customers, you're scaling globally, the scale should not be hampered because of the backend support or the API channel that you're having. And it has to be backed by being sustainable and reliable in terms of the performance, their uptimes, and the kind of latencies that you have. So that, because the more and more you're moving towards experience, right? A seamless experience, for example, if I were to just say click and pay, right? So if a customer all has to do is click and then the transaction is smoothly processed without any too many buffers and so on and so forth. So even smaller aspects like latencies, the uptimes, etc., matter a lot. And from general banking perspective, for me, which I value the most, rather, essentially, which I saw lacking in multiple other organizations or banks that we've been working with, is reachable. For whatever requirement, for whatever issue, even if it is any small thing, pick a phone, they're reachable, right? So you have constant comfort in terms of that. So since it is core to your overall operations, essentially, and any sort of transactions going haywire, essentially, you need bankers reachable to you, right? So that is one of the major factors that I look at. But at the core, it has to be scale, stability, and reliability of the overall service.
And this hyper-personalized is going to happen for startups. They're going to have an hyper-personalized service from that going to be a reality. That
I'm looking towards it, essentially, in terms of basically the way I'm moving towards, or even we are designing our entire stack, essentially is like Lego blocks. You don't build a massive structure at the beginning, right? You build small chunks. So that's easier to put together solutions and create a module that anyone needs, right? So that helps us sort of prototype as well as push solutions in the market. So that's where I would see every industry, every section evolving in that manner, where each microservice is like Lego blocks and you can easily build together solutions on top of it and customize it for each individual's requirement without spending excessive amount of energy at the back end, right? It's something that is built in modular.
Okay, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And for the interest of time, I have to move to Siddharth, because otherwise my team's saying we have another session coming up. Siddharth, final word for startups. How should they implement digital banking solutions? You've given us an entire, statement previously, but quick advice, a 30-second advice on startups to come and work with HSBC. What would you advise?
So, Nishat, I think I've got 3 things to say.
Okay,
and probably I'm just picking up from what Samarth, Omkar, Nishat, and Srinath, shared in terms of their experiences. First, I think it's very important to make sure that apart from your core business, you also give time and resources to establish your banking and financial processes in the most optimal manner, so that when you scale up, that doesn't become a roadblock. So I think that balance is important, okay, to make sure that you have an optimal solution. The second one is in terms of making sure that you have a partner which is not just agile, but also kind of look at the robustness, security, and the scalability of the solution or whatever you're kind of going for. And last but not the least, in terms of being future-proof, okay, and it not just in terms of technology, but on a lot of other factors. A simple example being, you may be today, a player where India is the primary market, but from an international expansion perspective, to make sure that you've got that partner who can kind of help you in the international expansion as well. And for example, the OmniCollect solution I spoke about, it's not just there in India, but it's there in 8 other countries as well. So when you're expanding, you just need to kind of use the same solution, for your banking, receivables requirement. Just one example. So I think these are, 2 or 3 factors which I think, our startup clients should keep in mind.
No, that's fantastic. Therefore, today it's been a fascinating discussion around smarter business unlocks tomorrow. Nishat's Rentokil, Srinath's Pickyourtrail, Samarth's MaxWholesale, and Omkar's Karza, right? These are companies that I individually want to talk about also. And obviously, Nishat, I'm going to talk to you because, all the women listening to this in my company would definitely want us to partner with you, right? So I'll write to you guys individually. Thanks, HSBC, for organizing these wonderful companies to come on this panel. And guys, if you want to write questions, write in quickly. We'll get each of these, great founders, management people to answer your questions, anything being with starting up, running a business cycle, and also all your banking questions. Siddharth will take them, okay? Hope you're enjoying TechSparks, and we'll see you soon. And that's a take. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.